Hello and welcome to today's Training Tuesday. My name is Heidi Reese and I am Dayton Superior's Training Programs Manager, hanging out here with Mr. Chuck Pope, our National Training Manager. Say hi, Chuck.
Hi, Heidi.
No, say hi to them, not me.
Oh,
Just a couple of things while Chuck decides to say hi to you. Everyone who has joined is muted so that we don't hear any background noise. And just to let you know, we also record every one of these and put them out on YouTube. So it is being recorded as we speak. And later on, I'll let you know when they're out there and you can re-review or send it along to someone who might take advantage of this bridge deck training. So let's get going with this training is intended, this presentation is intended for training purposes only. All of the technical specifications and products mentioned here on out through this training, please refer to DaytonSuperior.com and you can see all of the technical application, all the guides that are out there. Please refer to those before doing anything with our products. Dayton Superior, as you know, we are here for bridge deck, but we're not only just about that, we're about accessories and chemicals, forming, engineering, and training. We're going to talk a lot about engineering today and the bridge deck accessories that go with them. And we're going to talk about how to do takeoffs and estimations. But as you know, our chemicals, we have proven solutions, for your DOT needs. We have a BABA interactive map out there, and that's Build America, Buy America, if you're interested in that. We take the guesswork out of what is made in the USA as far as our products, and you can just select on your state and find that information. In addition, we have Simon's Forming Shoring, and all of those products are adaptable, strong, and save labor cost. So check those out as well. So like I said, I'm sitting here with Chuck, and he's going to talk about bridge deck estimations or takeoffs and applications to go with that. So Chuck has been in the construction industry for over 49 years, 20 as a dealer for all of the things I just talked about, which are accessories, forming, and chemical products. And 29 of those have been with Dayton Superior. And he's worked as a product manager as well as other very important positions. And now I know him and work with him the most as the national training manager. He's got a business and civil engineering degree that contributes to this role and very much a subject matter expert in many, if not all of the topics. And I really think all of them. Even if you say you don't know it, you know enough to be scary, that's for sure. So he is going to share his knowledge on the bridge deck estimations and applications. This is a 201 version, kind of ending out our bridge deck, and I'm going to send the email with all of the ones that we've done here this afternoon so you can have one email with everything included.
there you go.
So exciting. You ready, Chuck?
Yep, all right.
All right, hit it.
All right. So today we're going to talk about estimations and on applications of the products that we talked about. We are going to relate over to a couple of past presentations, which Heidi will send out to you at the end of this presentation. So if you didn't get a chance to see them, they are available on YouTube, but Heidi will make it easy for you and send it over to you. So we're going to talk about cast in place, precast, steel. We were seeing wood and or precast concrete basically supported on the concrete or steel beams. I mean, we've seen everything in the past couple of years. We're starting to see new processes coming through with bridge design and overall structure design throughout the construction industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about sheathing, joists, ledgers, things that may not be in your region of the country, but we are seeing a trend to go back to the old style of concrete forming decks because contractors or DOTs don't like the fact that with the SIP decking, they no longer have the ability to inspect the bridges from the bottom side. So those things are changing. We're seeing concrete plank being used now. We're seeing full concrete decks, which actually are being precast and delivered to the site in place. So, like I said, the industry is changing and updating. So on this one, we're going to talk a little bit about overhang brackets and the accessories. Basically provide stability and basically supporting finishing machines throughout the concrete forming. And also any of the concrete accessories that go with it. To go along with all this, we also have the Simon's forming systems, which actually provide restraint to your concrete. So basically, it's a concrete form. You can actually use that within the forming of the deck. You can use it in the forming of your substructure. And obviously, we've got the chemicals to go along with all this. And the big thing that we're going to talk about a little bit about today is the engineering services that we have available. So let's talk about bridge deck estimations. Typical things you're going to have to look within the set of plans when you first get it. Things that are going to be pertinent. How long is the bridge? What's the overall length? What are the girder details? What size are they? Are they steel? Are they concrete? What is the concrete deck thickness? And the thickness over the beam. And then the bridge width, because the width of the bridge is actually going to determine how big the finishing machine has to be. And the finishing machine typically has, the longer you get, the more weight it is. So if you have a longer machine, your overhang bracket has to support more weight. So with that, we'll talk about top bar clearance, transverse and longitudinal rebar sizes, bottom rebar coverage and top coverage, and also determining spans, center to center, etc. So typically, as we talked in the past presentations, things that we're going to need, couple of quick instances for information. Typical deck section. That's going to give us space, and then we have the framing plan. And the framing plan is basically the 1,000-foot view looking down at the deck. And this is actually going to give you your girder details, and which your girder details will typically also be the overall length of the deck. So once you see how long the girders are, that's how long you've got to actually put overhang brackets on, etc., to actually support. From that, we're also going to see girder spacing here. The spacing here helps you in determining the interior spacing of the brackets, or excuse me, interior spacing of the ledgers. And that is going to play hand in hand. You're going to see in another slide where that actually comes into play with figuring out on your overhang brackets, the spacing of the bracket. So if you have SIP decking or concrete plank, this isn't going to play that much of a factor in anything that you do. You're going to have the deck thickness, obviously. How thick is the bridge deck? How much concrete are we having to support? The width of the bridge, obviously, as we talked about, the weight of the finishing machine is relevant to the width of the bridge. So the longer the machine, or the wider the machine, the more weight the machine has. Typically, it comes up with a standard, and every time you get a little bit longer, you add a little bit more weight to it. This actually comes into play because the brackets, as you're forming up your finishing machine to run off of the overhang bracket, the finishing machine typically runs off of that overhang bracket. So therefore, the overhang bracket is good for 3,750 pounds typically. That means if the finishing machine is 2,500 pounds of it, then the bracket can only support another 1,250 pounds of concrete. So those are things that all come into play here. And so the other items that we're going to need to know to do an actual estimate is you're going to have top bar clearance. You're going to have the rebar sizes of the longitudinal and transverse rebar. And With that, you're also going to have, and what that's all going to relate out to is, are we going to use ledgers? So do we have to use interior spacing, or can we do SIP decking? If we have to do an interior ledger spacing, a lot of times they do not line up with the overhang brackets because typically they don't have the weight of the finish machine bearing on them. So a lot of times they're spaced out a little bit farther. So a lot of times you may have an interior spacing of 4 foot, but an exterior spacing of, let's say, 2 to 3 foot. Well, on all reality, I would actually pick 2, probably use more overhang brackets. It's going to cost you a little more, but it'll save you money in having to set up the deck. So these are things that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at your overall forming of the bridge deck. If you have SIP decking, interior spacing now becomes negligent. You don't have anything to worry about. The SIP decking will take care of all that. You just form up the concrete as you typically would. Use your typical rebar supports running on your support on the pans. And that is all that we talked about that all in the interior deck forming portion of these presentations. So obviously we've got overhang brackets. You'll see that there is a bunch of them. We've got a C49, probably the workhorse of the industry. Most common bracket, typically just from 30 to 50 inches. In a vertical dimension, you have the C49D for use on deep brackets or deep beams. And this actually has an adjustment from 50 to 70 inches. You have your S series, which is a field modified bracket, which actually is a C49, where we take the inner vertical pipe out and attach the exterior pipe to where the inner pipe actually attaches to the horizontal member. So, and this is easily done. We actually showed this in the session last week. So actually, if you're relating back to that, that actually comes into play also. We also have our junior bracket, approximately half the size of a C49, but it still has the same safe working loads. We also have available this extended capacity deep beam bracket. It's our C49C and C49CD. Great idea. We released this a couple of years ago, and it really hasn't taken off as well as we thought, because primarily it requires heavier hardware. You have to have a lot of additions to your standard C49 bracket. So you're almost buying a new bracket. So now we're seeing a lot of guys actually resorting back to the C89, the C89L, which are the heavy duty brackets that we typically have. But we also have available for those guys on the West Coast. We have a C49W, which is our, like I said, our West Coast style bracket. This bracket was actually developed back in the 70s by a company called Decanio. They did a great job with this bracket here for the seismic design structures that the California bridge market actually designed and came out with. This bracket is actually easily adjustable and usable within it. And we're starting to see more and more of this bracket across the rest of the country. It's not really just a West Coast style bracket anymore. Now, all of these brackets will require hangers. I'd love to be able to tell you what bridge hanger you'd have to use for what bridge. We can do that after we see the engineering work out the spacing. We also have to know the state requirements, whether or not you can weld to the girders, or do the hangers have to be sitting on top of the steel girders. Precast girders, we can also determine as far as a precast girder, what hanger can be used. We have probably 60 or 70 different hangers that are available in the marketplace. Between our 3.5 inch and 3/4 inch style hangers, whether or not it be fully adjustable, 90-degree clips, 45-degree clips, or 15-degree clips. We can actually modify any of these hangers to actually accommodate your needs within the bridge market. And you see, we've got a full array of hangers, and they all have, to be honest with you, they all do two things. One, they support concrete formwork. Two, they either support it on a 90-degree or they support it at a 45-degree. We also have a few that actually support it at a 15-degree, but those are kind of special application hangers, which are for concrete girders type 4 and 5, where they typically would have a concrete, on the concrete girder, you can't put a washer and a nut on the side of it because the hanger comes within an eighth of the girder, 1/8 inch of the girder. So what you have to do is you have to kick that 45, or excuse me, that coil rod out 15 degrees. That's going to give you enough room to actually put a washer in there to actually attach to your hardware. So we can actually make these modifications easily going through and get the proper weight accompanied with it, because all these hangers typically come in different weight assessments. You know, a 2,250, 3,300, 3,500 pound hanger, 4,500 pound hanger, or a 6,000 pound hanger. All of these are easily and readily available. A lot of them all depends on the configuration of how the bridge is designed. Most of these, one thing that these all have in common is they're going to use a 1/2 inch by 24 inch adjustable coil bolt. Now, guys can use a 1/2 inch by 20 inch if they want. Sometimes it makes it a little tough depending on the jobs. Sometimes with the 24 inch, you have adjustability of an extra 4 inches in case you have to exchange out forming hardware, drop your hanger down, etc., or your bracket down. And so what that'll do is if your hanger has to drop down to accommodate the formwork that you're using, a 20 inch may not be enough room, enough coil bolt to actually make the attachment. The 24 inch typically is a very versatile piece, used commonly, and can go from, contractors will take these from job to job. So a lot of guys will make them out of coil rod and just put a nut on, a running nut on it. I don't really care for that because to remove it, they have to actually attach a vice grip to it and actually muck up the threads to actually remove it. So that's why I kind of like the bolt, because you always have a welded head at the end, and then you can always loosen the bolt up with using the head at the end of the bolt with a socket on it. So we also have a C51 wall plate attachment plate. Now this will accommodate any of the brackets that we mentioned earlier in the C49 series, the C49, C49D, the C49S, and the C49 Junior. This basically makes any bracket we have into a sidewall mounted bracket, so it can also be used for shoring. So, and it basically, you have one bracket, you need one wall plate attachment plate. You also have guardrail and guardrail extenders. These are typically used, one for the safety rail, depending on how far your brackets are spaced apart. Typically, a lot of contractors like to have a safety rail every 4 foot, a vertical safety rail going in place. And then the horizontal boards going across will be supported at every 4 foot. If you have an instance where you have a lot of concrete or a deep overhang, you can actually put an extension in place. This will get you 20 inches of additional walkway space. This bolts directly into the overhang bracket, and typically you need one for every bracket. And this gives you an additional 20 inches of walkway space. Notice I said walkway space. You cannot pour concrete and have this extension support it. So it's only designed to actually support a live load.
I have a comment for that. Light loads, huh?
Light loads, yeah. So with that, we go into slab bolsters. Slab bolsters that are typically readily available. We've got slab bolster, plastic tipped, epoxy coated, galvanized, stainless, and also we can do galvanized wire. We can also do everything in a plastic, all plastic material. And with these, you can actually accommodate a wide scope of different rebar. Typically, you're going to have, if you have epoxy bar, you got to have epoxy bar supports. Galvanized bar supports. Or you can just use plastic. And then for the second layer up, depending on what's where your locale is, depending on the state, because some states still have a specification that all concrete reinforcement needs to be supported from the horizontal member, needs to be supported from the horizontal formwork. So therefore, if you're doing a removable wood deck form, you have to have bar supports there to actually go all the way down to the wood forming. So then you're going to use an individual chair or continuous high chair upper that's going to be quite a bit taller. A lot of guys will, and a lot of states have actually got rid of that spec, but there's still a couple out there that still maintain that requirement. And that would be something that would be on a state by state basis. Most states actually do use the slab bolster upper. So basically, you form up your lower mat, and then you put your next mat of rebar in on slab bolster upper. If you're using SIP decking, you're using slab bolster upper for your bottom mat and your upper mat. So we actually have talked in the presentation, I believe it was interior deck forming, with how to actually calculate how much slab bolster you use within the deck. So let's look at estimating for overhang brackets. So we've determined what type of hanger we want to use, and we determined how much of an overhang we have and how thick it is. So the big thing that we want to do is we want to look at a bridge deck. For example, has a 10-inch thick deck, 2'9" overhang from the plans. So we've actually going to use 2x4 joists on center. And we are going to find the correct chart within the overhang bracket spacing in the back of the Dayton Superior Bridge Deck Handbook. Now, the back pages, probably the back third of the handbook, is an outstanding reference piece because we have actually all the brackets here are denoted very similar by looking and breaking out this information right here. By taking that, those change on every page based off of whether it's a 1 foot, 2 foot, up to a 2 foot, and actually 3 to 4 foot overhang. So you can find that information. You find that spacing on what the overhang bracket, what the center, the overhang is. We had 2'9" here. So roughly I would actually figure 3 foot, my max. So I would come down here to this, I would use this chart. I come down here to my 10-inch calculation for my deck thickness here. Okay. And because my finishing machine is only going to run around 750 pounds, I'm going to figure that my spacing here, if I use a 6,000-pound hanger, is going to fall right. Yeah, my artistic skills with the mouse are not that great. It's going to fall right in around 6 foot. But realistically, you can't go more than 2 foot on center. If you change and go, if you have a 12-inch thick deck and you're still using a different hanger, you can come down here. The hanger bracket spacing for the same instance would be 4 foot 3 inches. Okay. You would then kick back to 4 foot, because you typically don't want to space over 4 foot, because standard number 2 lumber typically has a potential to deflect more than a 1/4 inch requirement that ACI actually puts forward in concrete formwork to allow in forming of any concrete structure. More than a deflection of a 1/4 inch is not allowed. So or you can pay the I think it's $150. And this actually gets you the bridge deck information sheet calculation. And this will be on the exterior only for $150. If you want the interior, it's another fee, small fee added into it. And we can also calculate the interior, exterior, and drawing and PE stand requirements. And a lot of DOTs will actually require this information before they will allow the contractor to proceed to forming up the bridge deck and pouring the bridge deck. They will actually have to produce this record to the DOT and give that paperwork into the DOT so that you can actually proceed. We've actually made this is on our webpage, our DaytonSuperior.com website, under resources, under engineering services. And what it is, you come up the bridge deck, it'll come up with a bridge deck information sheet. We will actually send this out and then to you. I recommend that the contractor fills this out. One reason being, you have to know the weight of the finishing machine. The weight of the finishing machine is only known by the contractor. Unfortunately, that's not a magic number. And with that, we'll actually send out a bridge deck engineering sheet. And here you will actually see how to adjust the overhang bracket right here. And it all relates out to these figures right in here. This actually tells you how to deep set the overhang bracket and to actually where to set this 45-degree receptacle on the bracket before you put it in place. You also have the weight of the bracket down in this area here, so you now know what the bracket is actually going to be supporting. With this, we also have the summary for the interior forming if needed. If you have SIP decking, not required. And this does a various breakdown of lumber dimensions and sizes, because there are obviously 2x8s, 2x10s, 2x12, and whether you're using 2x4s or 2x6 as your lumber or 4x4s. So all these considerations here come back through. They double check all the bending stresses within all the lumber, whether it be a ledger or joist or a double whale. And what this does is enable you to actually have all the paperwork submitted under one letterhead and basically in one form to the contractor, which the contractor can then, if he gets a drawing with this, he can also submit that to the DOT, as this is his pour forming detail. As you can see from this detail, the whole page is all detailed out with individual product name, strengths of the product, etc., all relating to that specific job. So Additional resources. Well, you heard me mention DaytonSuperior.com is a great place to start. You got technical data sheets, handbooks, e-marketing, product pages. You can also find your contact list for sales and customer service, technical, the engineering numbers, and also training. You'll also find how to get to the handbook, which I mentioned earlier. And we also have TDSs on all the individual products. Bridge deck calculations can also be shown here. Once again, it's under the engineering tab. When you pull that up, go to bridge. Once you get the engineering design calculations, go under the bridge. It'll bring that sheet up and you can actually pull that down and actually start filling it out. So with that,
We have a question.
okay.
Does Dayton supply the bolts for the hardware as well?
Yes, they do. The bolts can be either supplied, typically if you order an walkway bracket or a guardrail receptacle, you typically are going to get a 1/2 inch by 3.5 inch long A325 galvanized bolt and nut. Now, if for whatever reason you lose those on the site, or if you've got multiple jobs or you own the brackets itself, you can go, those are the typical specifications that we require for that bolt, is it must meet an A325, and I recommend galvanized, that way the concrete will not stick to it.
Great. So while you're asking any other questions through the chat or the question and answer functionality in Zoom, want to let you know that if you need more customized training or you want to do a bridge deck from beginning to end with your department, your company, there is a QR code right there on the screen that you can scan and it'll get to Chuck and myself and we can get that set up for you. Space is getting limited because we're going to send Chuck out and about all through the next couple months. So if you want to do that, go ahead and get that going. If there's no other questions, I'll let you have one more chance. All right, I appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us for Training Tuesday. Like Chuck said and I said, I'll be sending you all of the different bridge decks in one nice email. I'm also going to include some of the resources that Chuck had mentioned at the very end, including the engineering contact page as well as the forms. So all of you guys have a great Tuesday and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one, guys. Take care.